Hey guys, I'm going to have your vocab for this week. You're actually going to have vocab every day this week. We're learning a lot of new terms, so I'm going to have 4 different videos for each day of this week. They'll be short, but they do have the different vocab that we're going to be doing. So for Monday, we're going to be talking about mitosis and meiosis, basically. And then we're also going to define nucleus as well. So mitosis is a form of cell division, and if you did your comparing mitosis and meiosis worksheet from last week as kind of an introduction, you probably have learned a little bit about it. Mitosis creates identical cells. Okay, mitosis makes exact copies of each other, so things like your skin cells, your different organ cells, they basically constantly make exact copies of each other. So when you have like your dead skin is always replaced, like your dead skin cells, your body gets rid of those all the time, so your body has to replace those skin cells. So it works by way of mitosis to create those identical cells. These are identical cells, they are exact copies, and these have the same amount of chromosomes in them. So they will have 46 chromosomes in every single cell, because that is what you have. 46 chromosomes, 23 pairs of chromosomes. So if we look at this picture right here, this is kind of just a brief description of what mitosis actually is. So if you can look here, it says mother cell, so that's going to be like the cell that we start with. They call those mother cells because the end they call them daughter cells. You don't have to know that, but it's kind of just for reference. So our mother cell, or the cell that we start with, is going to make a copy of its DNA, so you kind of can see how there is one strand of blue and one strand of green. Now we have 2 strands of blue and 2 strands of green. And those chromosomes are going to line up in the middle. They're going to split in half, and then you now have 2 cells that have the same DNA and same amount of DNA in each one. So you can see we started with one cell that had 1 blue and 1 green, and we ended with 2 cells, each having 1 blue and 1 green. So mitosis, they actually make exact copies. So this cell is the same, has the same stuff as both of these cells as well. The next one we're going to talk about is meiosis. And meiosis is a type of cell division as well. So meiosis is it's a type of cell division, but it is going to create sex cells for us. So this is things like sperm and egg. So like males have sperm cells and females have egg cells. So meiosis is the only place where we have sex cells and sex cells, so sperm and egg cells. Mitosis does strictly like body cells, cells that are in your tissues, but meiosis is purely sex cells. And these cells are going to end with half of the DNA that they started with. So they go through a series of 2 divisions. And I'm not going to have you memorize all these steps, but just kind of, I'm going to ask you to kind of know the gist of these. Mitosis, I forgot to say, goes through 1 set of divisions. Okay, as you can see, it's only divided 1 time. Where in meiosis, it's actually going to divide twice. So these 2 sets of divisions actually end with 4 cells, and each cell has 23 chromosomes within that cell. So we're actually splitting in half what we start with. So if you look at this picture over here, it kind of does a really good job of showing you the process of meiosis. So we start with 2 chromosomes here, and then we're going to talk about this more, but what happens is they actually will touch and they will swap some of the DNA. So if you can see the red and the blue here, they're actually going to touch and they're actually going to switch some of their information over, kind of like exchanging information. So they're actually exchanging traits with each other. at this point. So things like blue eyes, brown hair, or being allergic to peanuts, like different genes, they're kind of switching through their chromosomes right here. This is called crossing over. And then you can see that when we split, our first set of splitting, we have some red from this guy with this chromosome, and we have some blue with this guy from this chromosome. So we end up with a kind of a combination of genes. Wow, I cannot spell today, guys. Combination of genes. And then we end with, we do another split, and basically we end up with 4 cells with half of the amount of DNA than we started with. So you can see these are full chromosomes, these X's. We end up with half of those in each cell. So meiosis again starts with 1 cell and goes through 2 sets of divisions, and we end with 4 cells. So we go through 1 set of division to get 2 cells, then another set of division to get 4 cells. And these 4 cells at the bottom have half of the amount of DNA that we started with. And they do have different genetic combinations than what we started with as well. The last word, actually I wanted to go through this picture right here. So this picture kind of gives a good idea of what crossing over actually is. So we have our chromosomes from parent A right here, our chromosome from parent B right here, and you can see that they kind of touch each other and they swap information, swap genes, and then at the end we have different sets of genetic combinations. So you can see that we have some red and green, we have some orange and yellow, and they're in different spots as well. So they change different genes in different spots, and we'll talk more about that this week when we really get into genetics. The last word we have is nucleus, which you probably heard before, and we've talked about it when we did our plant and animal cell assignment. So the nucleus is, I'm just going to have you know that it contains genetic material. Okay, so we have our cell. It can be body cells or sex cells. Inside of those cells, they're what's called a nucleus. And the nucleus is going to contain our genetic material or our DNA. And if you did the assignment from last Friday, that simulation, it kind of showed you some pictures of what that looks like as well. So that is the vocab for Monday.